What's up, and welcome to another episode of the PWYFA Play Where Your Feet Are podcast. In a nutshell, this podcast is all about learning to live a life full of living, and we do that here by playing where our feet are, meaning doing your best and being your best no matter what, no matter where, and know that any position you have and hold has impact and purpose. So taking advantage and not just taking up space. I'm your host, Cameron Dobbs, and today I had the absolute joy of sitting down with the ever-inspiring Grace Valentine. Grace is a speaker, a podcast host, a retreat director, and my favorite here, she's a friend of mine. I love Grace so much. I'm so excited to have her on the show. Grace and I got connected because I was on her book launch team for her book, Is It Just Me? And since then, she's released more books, devotionals, and hosted a beautiful retreat called Purpose Retreat. This past year, I was actually able to go up to the mountains of North Carolina with her and be able to help serve on that retreat and lead and speak a little bit and just be able to promote a little bit of Play Where Your Feet Are. So she is so amazing in that. But y'all, Purpose Retreat is absolutely phenomenal. So I'm going to make sure any information about that is going to be linked below so you guys do not miss out on that either. And if you're not following Grace already, you should definitely be following her. She is absolutely incredible and has so much wisdom. So to that point, today on the show, Grace shares so much of her story, kind of how she got to where she's at and what she's doing today, and how in the world she leads hundreds of thousands of young adults so well, because y'all, she kills it. And if you know, you know. But we are so excited to have her on because on this episode, she not only talks about her story, but she touches on hard work, time, satisfaction in God, authenticity in who you are, adventure, and of course, playing where your feet are and playing where her feet are in her life as well. Super fun episode, but before we begin, a couple of just things. You guys know the drill here if you've listened. Make sure you are subscribed, you're following us, whatever it might be, on all the podcasting platforms where you're listening or watching from. And of course, check us out on social media at Play Where Your Feet Are, or my own Instagram at cam.dobbs. But you gotta stay in touch because you need to know when we have merch drops. We got so much merch right now: hats, trucker hats, tote bags, t-shirts, sweatshirts, sweat sets, and more, bracelets. And of course, we got a book called PWIFA Play Where Your Feet Are, the podcast, and so much. So if you are following us on Instagram, that is your one-stop shop for all things Play Where Your Feet Are, and you'll be able to see everything there. But enough intro. This episode is so fun. Grace is absolutely incredible, and I can't wait for you guys to meet her and know her even more with this podcast. So enough intro here. Let's get into it, and let's bring in my sweet, amazing, ever-inspiring friend, Grace. Here we go. This is the PWYFA Play Where Your Feet Are podcast, and I'm your host, Cameron Dobbs. Grace Valentine, welcome to the PWIFA Play Where Your Feet Are podcast.
Thank you, Cam, for having me. I'm so excited to be joining you. And also, I feel so showed up. Your little studio behind you on the Zoom is so cute. And I'm like in my crusty kitchen. Like, you're just always so presentable, like ready for the news. And so I love being able to talk to you and also see your face while we go.
Oh my goodness. You're so funny. Well, we're so happy to have you on the show. And I try my best is the rest of my answer to that. Yeah. I guess it comes with the profession.
I know. I love you. Best posture. Anytime I'm around Cam, I always say I'm like literally putting my back up straight for the first time ever.
Hey, we're good influences on each other, right?
Yeah, yes.
Well, Grace and I met because I was actually on your book launch a couple years ago it's funny because I can't even remember what book it was at this point, but a couple books ago, I was on your book launch team. And then from there, we actually became friends, which has been the best part of all of it. Got to speak at your retreat in the spring, which was a blast. And we've just stayed connected through the past couple years. So honored to have you on the show, not only for everything you're doing, but because you truly are one of my good friends. So excited for today.
Oh, well, I'm so excited to be on here. I've listened to so many episodes, so it's really fun. I'm like, oh, hey, like I'm a subscriber. So it's great to be on the other end.
I love it. Well, you guys, most of you probably know Grace Valentine and who she is and what she does. And you see her posts on her social media platforms because she's so wise and is always providing so much just great advice and guidance to a lot of young adults in our generation. But I don't know how many of you know her story. And so I told her I want to give her kind of just this podcast to be her platform today of being able to share a little bit more of her story of how she got to where she's at today, in addition to what she's doing and kind of the behind the scenes of all of that. But before we dive into that, Grace, go ahead and just catch us up on life. How's it going and what's up in your life right now?
Yeah, well, at this point, I have moved to a new city, Atlanta, and that's exciting. And I think, I turned 27 this summer, and I think I was like, okay, time to like not be afraid of change anymore. Like my life was so good in Orlando, but kind of just wanted to spice it up. And also this will later be something I talk about when I'm talking about playing where your feet are, but also will give me a lot more opportunity to rest because of speaking. And so I'm excited about that and to be closer to where I feel called, especially. And so a little bit about like my story is I was like it sounds silly. I was very weird. It sounds silly. I don't know why it's not silly. Silly goose. I was not a cool middle schooler. I was severely bullied. Like anything that could have gone wrong went wrong. It's funny. I know you interviewed my friend Brooks for your podcast too. And we bonded over like the first time we met, we both had a disease where half our face went paralyzed. And I got mine on picture day. It's called Bell's palsy. Anyways, it's very rare in kids. And so I remember it was like, what are the odds? And like things like that just happened to me as a middle schooler. I was not a cute girl. And it sounds so silly, but like I look back and that was like God very much forming my character because I don't think I've ever, and I still today don't feel like I'm on the in crowd. Like I feel like I don't belong half the time, that I'm always on the outside. And it's like that middle schooler who was bullied comes back. But I remember praying and I was like, God, if you somehow give me influence, I will literally use it all for you. And God doesn't negotiate. It's not like, oh, now I owe him my life. Like I signed it away, but I want to because of what he's done for me. But I then went to high school and I kind of feel like I became obsessed with my looks. I realized you can dye your hair blonder, go to the tanning bed, lose weight, and get braces at junior year in high school because I was so late bloomer and everything. And I got like hotter, but I wasn't feeling better. And so I got guy attention all of a sudden. People even like thought I was cool. And it's so interesting how you can kind of just pretend and people believe it, but you still have this imposter syndrome because we're all not cool. And I spoke at my graduation. I think it's the first time God called me to do ministry, but I didn't know what it looked like to be a girl speaking. Like, cause I was like, well, I would love to speak about Jesus and like share stories, make people laugh, but like, that's not a thing for a woman. So it probably won't happen. And at that time I had an eating disorder. I was feeling so overwhelmed. And so there were so many highs and lows in my walk with Christ. And so then I went to college and I feel like I went complete opposite. I was like, I'm going to be a delinquent. I'm not going to even have an eating disorder anymore, but I'm going to just drink a crap ton. And that's what made me feel better. And so it was almost like the opposite spectrum. And I just finally realized I wasn't having fun. I think people try to sell so many young adults so many things and like why to stop like getting blackout, why to stop, being in hookup culture, whatever it may be. And for me, honestly, I felt like God's presence was like, you're not even enjoying this. Like, like you've been tricked by the world. And that's the way I looked at it. I was like, when I wake up after blacking out, I'm cringing. Like I have hangover anxiety. I am overwhelmed. So I kind of turned my life around at that point because I wanted purpose and I wanted my life to have meaning. And so I was so scared that following Jesus was going to make me miss out on like really cool adventures and like having fun. And that's why I love like your platform is about playing. Because I'm like that. I like always look for playmates. I'm looking for friends who want to be silly and do something crazy together. And I was so scared obedience would be about what I can't do. But the truth is it's about everything I can do. And so I love to write. I love to write for young women, especially. I love to speak and I love to do those things because I feel like I didn't relate to a lot of Christian material out there. And I'm sure that's exactly why you started and why so many people start, or, what people, are like, I want to be impactful in sports because there's not many great mentors who have a great gift that are pointing to the giver. And so I just felt like I didn't relate to anything. Everything felt from like the girl who, I don't know, got the guy. And there's nothing wrong with that. That's great. Like, they get married at 22, like life works out great. And they're giving you advice and they're like saying singleness is a gift. And you're like, really? Like after 4 situationships, is it a gift? Like, and so that became very much my passion, is to write real and honest encouragement. And so a lot of times that means that I'm very honest, and I don't write about the good things I do. I always like to tell like my grandma, my parents who read my stuff, I swear I do a lot of things right. I'm just not writing about those things. And yeah, that's a very short summary. Also very long summary in some ways. Hope that explains it.
No, that was perfect. And I love how you touch on, of course, and I think you see it in your story too, of just how genuine you are. Because I think oftentimes, especially in this space, it's easy to kind of put up the perfect little front of saying the right things and almost being rehearsed and different stuff. But you are just so authentic, and you're bold in it and you are blunt in it, but it's perfectly said at the same time. And that was so fun to watch you lead that same way too at Purpose Retreat. Like the way you talk to girls, you don't have to focus on being like this gentle spirit or like having this calm voice or anything. Like you're just going to tell them how it is, because that's how they need to hear it. And I think I'm very much that person too. I'm not a very like gentle person. And so I think having someone even, being able to look up at you and saying that Grace can do it too is that, I can do it too. So it's just so inspiring to see. And mentioning that, of course, and you mentioned you're following your own purpose and finding your own purpose. You also have Purpose Retreat. And so through everything that you're doing, you mentioned a lot of the things that you're passionate about, but what have you found is your purpose on earth?
Yeah. Well, one, I do want to speak into the fact that like, I want to say for you, you are gentle. I think sometimes the loud girls or the extroverts are like, I'm not the gentle girl. And I'm like, you can still be gentle and kind, but you're not sweet. I think it's the sweet factor because, sweetness isn't a fruit of the spirit, like gentleness is. And I think we have been taught to just go with the flow and be quiet and meek. And so I've learned gentleness can be bold and loud. So I want to speak that over you, Cam, that you can be very gentle, even if
I love that.
you're a firecracker at the same time. But yeah, so like my purpose, like, and what do I exactly feel called to? I feel called to, I never had a big sister. Like that's partially like the way I like to write. Like when people are like, you're like my big sister, I feel called to just, be honest, and especially to girls who maybe you're in the party scene or in college age or recent grads. Like that's an age that I'm like, man, I totally understand like everything you're facing, and to just show them like how much they're worth and how beautiful their purpose is and how great wisdom is. And so I always say lately that I want to teach girls like confidence, purpose, and wisdom. Like those are the things that you need in order to walk in a holy manner and not in this life where you waste your time trying to prove you're worth loving. Because if you realize you're already loved, you're not going to waste your time trying to prove to your ex-boyfriend that he missed out, or that group that still thinks they're better than you from your hometown, that you're worthy. And so that is what I ultimately feel called to, is just like pouring into them. And even just though I will say, I'm called to that, but I'm also called to, serve in a church and like disciple girls. Like I have, in Orlando, I had ninth grade Bible study. In Atlanta, I'm looking to serve in youth ministry again. Like those are things that, you may have like your big purpose, but there's also the small community purpose that sets me on fire. And I hope everyone here has too.
And I want to go off of that too, because you are traveling all the time, always. In fact, that's one of the reasons why you're moving anyway, is so that travel can be easier on you. But having this constant movement of state to state, city to city, living out of a suitcase, living out of a car, living out of a hotel, how do you find you best steward those local friendships, local relationships, and local church? Because I know it's hard. So what's your feedback or thoughts on, or maybe even advice on those who, whether they're living in a similar career or just they're traveling a lot, like what's your best advice for stewarding things in your local community?
Well, I first in Orlando was awful at that. And it wasn't until like a year ago, or like over a year ago, when I finally got active in the last church I went, because I had worked at 2 different churches, and I was like finally done working at a church. And I'm like, anytime I walked into church, I felt like I was like, oh, I'm on, here we go. Like, and I was so worried that anytime I walked to a church, and I think this goes for a lot of demeanors and our personalities, is I was like, please don't try to hire me. Like, I'm done. A lot of times I try church and they try to hire me, and then I'm miserable. And I'm like, no. So I've told myself, if I'm ever working for a church in the next 5 years, like literally slap me. I don't know. Like I'm doing something wrong. I'm not listening to God's calling at this point. But I think, going even, finding a church that isn't for the people that you want to meet, but is for you. So because you're going to meet the people along the way. Because sometimes we look at it like it's 4 weddings, and we're like, well, I really like the young adult community, but I don't like the worship, and the teaching is this. And so you come to criticize so many churches, you never get to be the church. And so I think I had to get to the point where I'm like, I am joining this church. Like, do I like everything? Do I agree with even everything? Maybe not. Like stuff I can pray over, but like I'm going to be the church and I'm going to be active. And I think when I realized that is a responsibility I had to stop making excuses. I had to stop saying I was watching online. But even when you have a busy schedule, I just think you have to prioritize that. I'm lucky where a lot of my speaking gigs are actually during the week because I'm meeting college kids and they're probably doing like, the party girls that I'm trying to reach are partying on the weekend. So, they got a date mixer and stuff. So usually I am there during the week. And so that's a blessing. But even if it's not, I have to like pray about those commitments and see, is this something I feel called to, or is this just something that's paying? And I think something that keeps me really humble right now is I'm not really making a lot of money off it. Like, yeah, I charge for speaking, but I don't take Instagram ads and I don't, like, I'm still hustling. I'm always having another side gig, just to make ends meet. And there's nothing wrong with that. Like humble and strong roots build great fruit. And so, and I could do more ads. I could do that, but I don't want to, like, cause that's not my mission. And so it's also about saying no to the things, that because it's gonna, if it's tiring your passion, it's gonna tire you. And I think sometimes we're like, oh, that's easy money. That's this. But if it's tiring your heart for what you do, it's gonna make it hard. And so that helps me prioritize my own community when I'm also like substitute teaching, because like I'm like, I meet kids then, or if I'm, meeting a mom friend and I'm babysitting, even at age 27, like then I have a mentor and I didn't even ask, God just provided. And so those are ways that keep you humble and grounded. So you're never better than any side gig or meeting with any girl for lunch. I think that's awesome. My biggest pet peeve with our generation is like, someone reaches out and is bold enough to ask you to like get lunch and you don't go. And I'm like, you can even make it a group thing. Bring another friend if you feel weird about it, but you're not better than any other 20 something.
Yeah, I'm thankful that you got dinner when I asked if you wanted to get dinner, or else we probably wouldn't be here.
We're being best friends, and I didn't bring her because it was weird, by the way. But she was like, I love Miami, and I was like, wait, this girl, my friend Cam, loves Miami. Anyways, but yeah, that's how life is. Like you do that, and so I'm glad you asked me.
No, I love that. And you mentioned you're doing a lot of things. You're doing side hustles, you're doing writing, speaking, tours, all the different things. Writing books, obviously, in addition to just writing on social media and blogs and being ambassador for LO and more things than that, depending on the season that you're in. So you have a lot going on. So I know this question is almost like a trash question because I know every single day is different. But talk to us a little bit about like the inner workings of your life. So what is like a day-to-day or week-to-week in your life? Maybe, for example, in like the fall season when you are going on more speaking stuff.
Yeah, because like today I babysat from 7:30.
Right.
Yeah, like that's so glamorous. But it's still not even glamorous. So, I mean, now that I'm going to be in Atlanta, that's saving me a lot of time. But I mean, in the past, it's been like, there's sometimes when I'm speaking at one sorority that has reached out and they're the ones that really helped me there. And there's other sororities in the area that have reached out. So sometimes I'll spend a week, like at Alabama last year, I just went boom, 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 boom to everyone that reached out. And that was really fun. And in those moments, I'm getting lunch with usually the exec or whoever brings me, which is really fun because I take that seriously. I'm like, these are the girls kind of on the front lines. Like I get a day I'm honored to be able to have time with them. So then I need like, hopefully if I get lucky, I have already planned what I'm speaking, but like 30 minutes at least, just like me time. Cause even though I'm an extrovert, I'm like an introvert extrovert. Like I need that like me time alone and just God time and praying over it. And yeah, I mean, during the week, I'm figuring things out. Like me and my co-host of my podcast, we've been trying to figure things out because she moved to California. So we're like trying to be better about that. I think each day is about like hopefully creating goals and even ahead of the week. And that's something I haven't been good about, but when I am good about it, everything ends up working better. But yeah. And then I think something that I always prioritize during my week is a community life group. That's like for me, and then serving at least for 1 hour of both. And that is something that I've like done this past year in Orlando and I plan to do in Atlanta. And then the gym. I think no matter what, I think even if I'm in a hotel gym, which I've seen you do that before too, I will feel like horrible if I don't work out. And I always say that almost working out is like a love language with me with Christ. Like I feel God so much when I'm on a run, even if I'm on the treadmill, even if I'm watching Law and Order while I run, I just feel like my body is more alive. There's something about my heart pumping. And I'm so ADD that I think it like helps set my mind on the right things. And so those are things that are during the week. I mean, each day's my schedule's different. I try to always wake up at a decent time because I think as a self-employed, like the minute you start sleeping in, like you like you become a bad employee for yourself. And I've watched myself do that as well. So like at least waking up at like 8:30, 9 is important for me.
Oh yeah, and I so relate to the working out thing. For me, another part about it too is like that's one space for me that's it's literally like it's like self-care. It's a time where I'm not focused on being productive elsewhere. I'm not looking at a screen. Like it is a rest time for me even though I am exhausting my body as I'm doing. Like it's so peaceful, and of course being an athlete all my life, it's just so normal to me, and makes me feel so good. So yes, to working out. I love always seeing your content in the gym and lifting big weights too. Like come on, hear it for a girl that's lifting big weights. I love to see that.
I'm losing my trainer in Orlando, but now I'm gonna become a CrossFit girl. So wish me luck. I tried it in Atlanta when I was looking at Atlanta, and I was so overwhelmed because I went to this like, great trainer and everyone's great, but everyone's like older. I'm kind of one of the strongest in the gym. Then I'm at CrossFit and there's like these meaty boys, and I'm like, felt like gym and like in third grade all over again on dodgeball. I'm like, wait, I'm not. And I had to be like, wait, we're all for the same goal. Like you're 27. No need to get scared about like a 24-year-old boy. And oh my God.
You're growing a ton this year. You're stepping out to a new state, stepping out to a CrossFit gym, my everything. I love it. I have one of my favorite quotes is actually by my sports reporting professor from college. And she says that life begins at the end of your comfort zone. So you're killing it this year.
Okay.
I love it. Okay, so we talked about some hard things, of course, in the career that you do, in the life that you live. You're managing a lot, you're traveling, all the things. What would you say is the hardest part of your job? Because I know it's not all sunshine and rainbows and butterflies all the time.
Yeah, I think, well, as a woman, you have to, I think honestly, dating in any career where you're chasing a dream is hard. I don't say that to be like, oh my gosh. I think, there's people who could be good Christian guys who don't have the same like ministry evangelism to you, and like they're going to slow you down, and so they're not for you. And that doesn't mean anything's wrong with them or you, but when you have a calling that is so pressing, you might have to focus on what's going to help you be the best and be the church for people. And I think that's something people don't really talk about, because most of the people who are doing it already are married, and there's nothing wrong with that. That is so beautiful, and that's also such a gift that they have. And that's also, there's a spiritual warfare in that the enemy attacks their marriage. And so you can't, anything's hard. It's just, everyone has their own unique hard. And I think also what's hard in this industry is just, my parents are not people who've ever like given me money in my 20s. And I'm not saying that's like a bad thing. I'm so thankful for it. I love my parents. My parents are very smart, and they're, successful. They've done great things, but I have had to work for a lot of stuff my own. And so that meant like juggling a nanny job or side gigs. And I think people glamorize the end result, but they don't talk about the middle. And I even like look back on like after COVID when I was furloughed and I was nannying full time, writing every second I got, writing another book, overwhelmed. And I could say let go, let God, but I had to also, God showed up, but I had to too. And that is hard, because I think everyone wants the end result, but no one wants to get there. Like I get a lot of girls who are so kind, they message me and they're like, I'm so inspired. I want to write a book. And I go, great. That is so cool. Now write on your Instagram and blog for 2.5 years and then come back to me, because I don't know how to tell you how to write a book without that. So, and it doesn't just happen overnight. And I think that is the thing. And if you're in this career or any career that's creative like this for results and not for a passion and a calling, you're going to get disappointed and you're going to get tired, because you're not going to have those results every day. And so now a lot of people are like, how'd you get the followers? And there's plenty of people with way more followers than me, but it didn't happen overnight. And I think that's the lie we think about social media, is that you just takes one reel to go viral and then you are gold. And I'm like, no, it takes slow and steady growth that is pointing to Christ and something meaningful in your calling. And that is very encouraging in some ways, because you can do the work and like you can get there if you trust God and that's your call, but it also can be draining. And so I think that's something no one really prepared me for. But if I had to go back and do it all again, like, yes, I would, but I'll be like, oh, here we go.
Yeah, I love that. And I think a big part of that too is, we can have all these big, great dreams and have these big goals. But I think so often it's like we get caught up in a little bit of like the best is yet to come, the best is yet to come. Like, yes, for sure, 100%, but like the best is yet to come, but there's still purpose in the present and there's still purpose in the process. And like it might be a grind and it might be tough, but like, man, there's so much purpose and growth and goodness in that we don't want to miss out on. So like, yes, write the book. Yes, like go speak to thousands, whatever it might be, but like take advantage. Of course, that's all about play where your feet are. Like take advantage, don't take up space where you're at right now. Go run after that where you're at with the finances you have, with the followers you have, with the resources you have, whatever, and then just build it from there. And I think opening and letting that space come in where God has the space to move in that space is so important too, of just like using it where you're at. Like you said, even of writing on social media for 2 years and building that space, building that time, growing yourself there, and then see what happens after that. That's so beautiful. And I so agree on that. Now, there's some hard parts to the job, of course, but I know there's a lot of great parts to it, too. And whether that's interacting with others or impacting people and communities, you do a lot of beautiful things, and I know you get to be a part of a lot of awesome things. So what's your favorite part of the job?
Gosh, probably the people I get to meet. And like, I'm sure you relate just too. I'm like, I feel like I could go to any state. And that sounds creepy. I'm like, there's some online friend that I could crash on their couch at. But it's so true. I think especially when it's in the Christian setting. And when, moved to Atlanta, there was even a 13-year-old girl, and I just had, now she's 15, and she literally was driving with me for the first time. And it's funny because when my third book came out, I was like, anyone know any small businesses? I would love to do giveaways. Like, I'm not charging for this. It's a woman book. I want women-owned businesses. And she goes, me and my mom started like a clothing brand called Shop Cake for Dinner. And it's so cutest sets. And there's just a big trendy, but more like appropriate sets for teenage and college girls. And so then I connected with them, went over to their house, and then I like stayed with them for a week now this past week. And I'm like, it's this mom, like I look up to, this sweet teenage daughter, like the sweet family. I'm like, how cool is God to just lead you to people that you didn't expect? I always say it's like invisible string, the Taylor Swift song, but I'm like, when you are following God's best, like you're going to meet the coolest people. And it's all because you said yes to him and not because, of anything of your own doing.
Yeah, that's so true, and that's so beautiful. And we already mentioned her earlier, but even it's like Anna, like the fact that we got connected, that I met Anna, and now Anna and I are so close and such best friends, and just all the things that can come out of it, like all the unexpected things and all the unexpected people that can come out of it are so special. And I totally agree. Even when I do speaking engagements too, and like get to talk to the athletes, my favorite part at every single school is like the aftermath. It's after I'm done speaking, after I'm done doing all my things, and just getting to talk like one-on-one, face-to-face with different athletes. And I always joke and say like, because I speak to a lot of male and females in the room. Usually it's not separated to just females. And so I always say, like, if I did a good job, I have male athletes coming up and talking to me. Like, that's my goal. I'm like, that's when I know I connected with everyone is when I have the football players coming up to me too and talking to me. So yeah, the people are for sure the passion to all of it and behind the scenes. And it's the coolest thing ever. And you speak to a lot of people, specifically young adults. You've already mentioned a lot of young adult girls, college girls, even high schoolers will follow you too. And so in doing a lot of writing that's tailored to that audience, what have you found to be kind of like the biggest misconception or myth that I feel like is teaching this next generation that you kind of feel like you should debunk most? Like, what do you feel like this generation needs to hear most?
Yeah, gosh, that's such a good question. I mean, there's so much. I think, girls need to hear that we're all teammates and not competitors. I think there's so much bitterness. I think also I'm seeing a lot of people struggling with like the idea of one-sided friendships. And I think just remember, like when your faith with Jesus Christ, like it was completely one-sided on him. Like he went to the cross, like he bore your sins, like his love was one-sided and you accepted that grace. And so remembering that, to not hold records of wrongs, especially with your friendships. I'm seeing a lot of like people keeping a scoreboard on their friendships. But I mean, gosh, I think even just people just not knowing their worth. And that's like so cheesy. And I think that's the main one for girls because there's social media, there's success, there's school, there's, athletes, there's, social media validation, everything it can be. And if you just don't know who you were created by, then you won't know God. And I'm sure I know that Barbie movie is a hot topic and I really liked it, but the Billie Eilish song where it's like, what was I made for? Like, and all these people who are like not believers have been crying about this movie. And I'm like, especially that part. And I'm like, it's because they don't know what they were made for. Like, they don't know their worth, like their Lord, their purpose. And so I'm like, no wonder you're crying to that Billie Eilish song and watching Perfect Margot Robbie cry. Like, so that is something that I think we're seeing, even if, and it's this revelation that they're struggling with, the thing is they don't even know they're struggling with it. They just think it's normal. They have to sit in it. And I'm like, you don't have to stay that way. Like, you can admit it. And there's something beautiful about being like, this is where I'm at, but like, you don't have to stay that way.
Yeah, and that's exactly why I always say it's play where your feet are and not stay where your feet are, because we want to like be present and be, and like we want to be present, we want to be in the moment. Even it's better than be where your feet are, because like, yes, that's great. Be where your feet are, be self-aware, understand your circumstance, all the things there. But we don't want to stay there. Like it's okay to not be okay, for sure. But how can we no longer not be okay? Like, let's not just sit in this moment of not being okay and be like, oh, I'm just not okay, and that's that. Like, no, like, cool, throw a pity party if you need to, but that's not a party you want to stay at. Like, spend your time there for one night, and then let's move on, because we don't want to stick around to that party. And so it's play where your feet are. It's not stay where your feet are, because you want to continually change and improve and do your best and be your best, no matter what, no matter where, no matter what your best looks like. But knowing that you want to continually improve, change, and see how you can continue to be your better self. So I love that too. That's so good. And you have a devotional specifically titled "For the Girl Looking for More." And you lead so many people. I mean, you have over 100,000 followers on Instagram, more on other social media combined. You're speaking to so many. So going off of that title and digging deeper, even from that last question there, for the girl looking for more, what would you say to that girl?
Yeah, I think gosh, I go back to what I said in the beginning. You're not going to find more when you look for it in more of the world. Like, I think I thought, like, it's like, I see so many college girls who are like, I want to be a good girl and love Jesus, but like, I want to have a fun college experience. I want more of that. And I'm like, you're going to have a lot of hangovers and you're going to feel like crap. Trust me. You're going to get more in this life if you realize like who it gives you more than you deserve and like who God is. And so, I mean, and I would say it's a sign that like there's the fact that you are desiring more than anything this world could fulfill is a sign that like there's nothing that can fulfill it other than something that wasn't in this world. Like, everyone has tried. Like, you can meet celebrities, you can meet athletes who have the best talent, and it's never enough. And so there has to be something more out there, and you'll find that when you realize who's the creator of this world.
Yeah, amen. That's so good. And so much beautiful writing, of course, is in that devotional too, that we will make sure we have all of her books linked below. But speaking of writing, you are always writing. You're always writing, whether it's a book or a piece that goes on social media, whatever it might be, a blog, anything. Do you ever have a time period when you're not writing, or are you always forever writing?
Honestly, that's something that I'm working through, is that my hobby has become something I do consistently, where there has to be moments where I step away because it can be too much like a system. And when it's a system and not from the spirit, then it's not in the right place. And so that's something I'm currently trying to convict myself of, but I'm always right. And I do enjoy it. Like, I always say it was my love language with Christ, but I haven't, like, if I'm being honest, I need to write in my journal more than I write on Instagram. So like, that's just my own thing I got to work through, because I used to just have my prayer journal and that's where I wrote first. And I'm like, oh, that sucks, you know? Yeah, so that would be something I need to work on. But yeah, I'm always writing. And my friends, if they see my notes like, it's also written in my notes on my phone, to the point of even my last book, I was, doing my normal on like my computer, and I was like, I just got to write some on my phone, because I'm just so used to doing it on my phone that it's easier. Like, my mind space feels more free. Like, I know what to do. And so I wrote a lot of my book on my notes app, which just sounds so weird to think about, but yeah. So I am always writing, but I will say people are so scared about running out of content when they are like that, but there is nothing new under the sun. Ecclesiastes 4:12, like, what has been will be again. There's so many times when I write something like, to the senior going into this year, and I'm like, what, there's a new group of seniors this next year. So people always need that truth. You can always add something new and fresh to it, but like, the meat of it can be reshared by you.
Yeah, that's so good. I too wrote my entire book in the notes section of my phone before.
Shut up. That makes me feel so less alone. Yeah. I was like, I'm insane.
No, for sure. I wrote it out all in my notes, and then from there put it to a Google Doc, and then I physically wrote it out from there to read it a different way, and then typed it again. But yeah, I have, even today, I still have all originally 16 chapters. It was published as 14, but all written in my notes section of my phone. Oh yeah.
That's so cool.
It's because your ideas come flowing, and it's also the easiest way.
And if you want to have that conversation in tone, it's easier.
Yeah. Okay. So in doing all the writing and doing all the social media and speaking all the things that you do you have any help? That is my big question. Do you have help? Do you have people that are on your team? How much of this is just a one-man band?
Yeah. So I recently in this past year, when my speaking was taking off even more, I had my friend Haley, who we worked together at camp. Like the best part is like, she's like my manager, but like, we're just friends. Like, I'm just like, will you act tough in an email? Cause I got tired of like the money part. And I will say that's something important that like, I am bad at charging people. Like I feel awkward. It's, lump in my throat. And she's such an Enneagram 9 where she's like, she keeps the peace, but she's almost like the good passive aggressive friend. Like and I appreciate that about her. Like she's a 9-wing-1, and I feel like that helps us work really well together. And she's great at doing the contract to tell people this is the rate. We'll work with you, like depending on your budget, but like we still have to put food on my table. So that's that. And she just gets a percentage of it, which makes it, great for her and great for me because I don't have the funds to pay her full time yet, but I would love to. Like that will be my first hire. And I do have 2 interns who during the school year, like I'll like get interns from colleges who will help, and that's fun. But like it's pretty much a one-man band where I'll watch people who are influencers be like, I'm hiring an assistant full time. Like, where's the money from? Like I just but I think I'm close, but I respect when people do that because I'm like that. So yeah. And don't be afraid of it being a one-man band or even like a 1.5-man band. Like I love having a friend like Haley because I think sometimes you think your first hire has to be someone who's so qualified. Like, and Haley, we work together at camp, we plan activities together, and she helps me plan my retreat and she helps me lead it. And she's amazing. But at the end of the day, I just trust her a lot. Like, I know she knows me. I know she'll call me out if I'm like doing something that's not what I'm called for. And that's the most important thing when like you're slowly building a team. And by slowly, I mean very slowly.
No, it's so good. I'm similar in the way that my mom and I are co-owners of the business, and she's my momager. So just like Chris Jenner, yep, just like Chris Jenner, move over. We got Paula Dobbs in the space, so she is my momager, and she handles a lot of that. My dad even helps with a lot of logistics, so plane tickets, flight situations, all the things. He definitely steps in too. So yeah, it's awesome to have really just community, like you said, just people that you trust to be able to come in and hop in and help out. And, one of my best friends and former teammates shot the cover of my book. Like a lot of my friends will help out with photo shoots here for merch. Like it's just so fun having people in this space. It's not even the status of like having a hire or anything. It's just including people on what you're doing.
Amen. No, exactly. And people want to be a part of it. Like if they believe in you and your mission, like Haley actually reached out. There's like, can I help you with anything? And I was like,
oh,
you know what? Like, yes, please. I don't know how I'm doing it. And it makes it more fun.
I love it. All right, Grace. So you've got a busy speaking schedule. You have multiple books now, a successful retreat. Like you got a lot going on and going for you here. But I know you're not done, and I know you have a lot left in you. So what are your future goals with this? I mean, you're just getting started per se. You're only 27 years old. So what are your future goals with everything that you're doing?
Yeah, that's a great question because I still got to figure it out. I mean, I want to keep writing. I love having books, and I would love to like do some more topic, like obviously scripture-based ones, but different topics that have been on my heart. I mean, 20 years on the road, I would love to write a fiction book. I'm like, right now, I like, that's like that. I have nothing to say for that. When I was a little girl, I wanted to write a fiction book, and I do love fiction books. And I also love like the series on Netflix that start from fiction books, but I also hate that there's nothing that has more of a Christian message really out there for teen girls, and so I would want it to be kind of like that vibe, like a more wholesome, take on some popular, like, not the same thing, but similar, like little romantic comedies and like that. That would be my like crazy goal. But yeah, I mean, I love my retreat. I love doing that. I love speaking and kind of just saying yes to the things that come up, and being bold in those. But that's kind of it. Like, you'll probably never see me hopefully become like a weird like influencer. Like, like I don't have I'm not good at that. You'll never probably see a cool list. Maybe, honestly, I've thought about it. But those aren't really my goals. Like, that's just kind of the simplicity of it. Like, I don't know exactly where, but I just know hopefully I'll be writing because I love to write, and nonfiction, fiction, and just being able to meet girls whatever way the Lord has.
And what's your biggest way to make sure that like you're content in the season and content in the space that you're in and success level, career level that you're at, but then also not being comfortable? What's your best tip there? Or what do you do for yourself?
I love that. I think I mean, I can tell myself to be content by, I have to unfollow people who I just feel like, even if it's my sin, if it's like I'm comparing myself to them, I think if it's like, if I'm getting overwhelmed about this married couple, this blogger, this person who got everything I've been working for so quick, I got to unfollow them. It's not, and I have to remind myself, that's my problem. That's my burden. That's something that it's my sin, not theirs. And so, but I don't owe them a follow, but I owe myself and my God and even them the not comparison. So that's something I have to do to be content. And then also I think just being honest about that with community and staying in the local church has been so good for me. And I've had seasons where I haven't been good at that. When I have, I think it helps me be content because I'm remembering that at the end of the day, I'm called to go and tell, but I'm mainly called to make disciples. And like, if I'm doing that every day and I'm finding friendships that are fulfilling, that's great. But to remind myself to not stay too comfortable. I mean, that's like for me, waking up early, like having goals, like making my list tangible, like always thinking 4 steps ahead in some ways is like book ideas. I do have like 4 book ideas that are not a fiction book in my head that like I would love in the next 5 years to hit. And I've talked to some publishers recently and they're like, you wild, man. And I'm like, yeah, like this one, which one you like best? Like, and I'm like, this is the one I want to write next. And so I think constantly having, things and also not being afraid to switch it up. If God, says not right now, then that's okay. But writing it down is so beneficial. Being like, this is an idea. You may go back to it years later. So that's something I do. But yeah, even moving to Atlanta, I feel like with me just not staying comfortable. I was like, you know what? I want to speak more. I want to take more opportunities. And I'm going to have to move. And if I feel called to SEC sorority girls a lot of times in the next at least 3 years, then I need to be close to the SEC towns and not in like middle Florida. So that's where I've also been like moving to like a more middle ground.
That's awesome. Once again, that your life begins at the end of your comfort zone. So making sure you're stepping out in that area that is not comfortable for you. But I want to stick to that, go back to that social media piece because that was really good. And I found that was something really beneficial to me too. And the same thing to where it's like, it's on me for comparing myself. It's on my own sin for doing that. But I had to do the same with like other sports reporters that were even closer to my age and seeing like the big advances that they were making in their careers and different things that they were doing and just feeling like just awful about myself and feeling discontent and thinking, why am I not there yet? And they're the same age as me, or like, why did I not take advantage of that opportunity? Or why did I not get that internship when whatever it might be? And I love that you said, like, I don't owe them a follow. And I think at the end of the day, it comes to a point where it might be your sin that you need to control, but it's also not helping them any if you're just looking at that post and judging them and you're having bad thoughts about them. Like, that's not positive on their end either. And so going off of the social media route too, I mean, you are very heavily involved in it because you are so active. That's where so much of your writing goes, is pretty much on a daily basis on social media, and even podcasting on there as well. So how best do you find you navigate social media? Do you have boundaries with it? Do you have time limits with it? How in the world do you navigate this crazy world of social that we live in and thrive and have a career in?
Yeah, no, that's something I haven't been good about. I think I used to be like, 1 day Sabbath, and now I'm like, but engagement. And that's my own sin, for the record. I understand that. So that's something I've been like convicting and talking to mentors about. And just creating a good boundary, because also Sunday nights are actually when my posts do the best. So I got like, I think I saw Annie Downs as Wednesdays, and I'm like, you know what, that could be a good day. And so when I hopefully this fall, that's one of my priorities, is to creating like good boundaries in that. I will say, I don't post much about my face, like, and it's not because I'm like, more of him, less of me, like, or anything.
You're so humble.
I know, like, all the Jesus I owe. I just get exhausted taking photos of myself. And I used to think I had to do that in order to be viral on social media. I also thought I had to pick up one quote. And I think I stopped looking to the left and to the right. And I just looked at what God wanted from me. And I was like, I like to write 5 pages. And so be it. A lot of people may not have the attention span. And I even had people in the beginning be like, no one's going to read. That's a lot of words, but it reached the people it was supposed to. And so it's cool how when you don't look at what else someone else is doing and just try to copy that, because I think I also see people like jump on trends in the world of social media, and be a trendsetter, not like just someone who follows the trends. I think that is something so important. And so, I mean, I even laugh. I've done these swipe things for as long as I can remember. And it's funny. It's great. I love that it's caught traction with people, but I have to also like be like, don't get stagnant there, But don't think just because someone else is doing reels and this one cool click thing that it's something I have to do. Because if I'm doing something that isn't what God's calling me to do, it's going to be like putting skinny jeans on that don't fit, and it's going to be miserable. And so I think that has helped me with social media. Is I'm like, I'm not called, I can't ask my mom to take 20 pictures of me on vacation, but me and my grandma can do a silly video together. Like that feels more me. And so finding out what fits for you, I think is so important with social media, because it's easy to think you have to be all things for everyone on a space like that, but you don't. Like find your niche, find what you enjoy and that isn't miserable for you, and do that. And so for me, it's not posting my face a lot, and I love it. And I think I've had to like not respond to like hate comments, just let it sit there and not delete the hate comments. And that just makes me feel better, because in social media, you'll find so many people who just want to tear you down. And that's been something that's been lately hard for me, but I've had to create the boundary and like screenshot those, tell my community and tell my friends, like, this annoyed me, this made me feel bad today. Let them speak life into me. And it doesn't make me pathetic for asking them to speak life into that. But I have to bring it to them and be honest about that.
That's awesome. That's so good. My mind is blanking what I was about to go off of, but everything you just said was really good. I'm going to blame that on my 5 concussions that I've had, because I was going to say something.
You've had 5 concussions. Oh my God.
Woohoo! Yay, brain injuries.
Yeah. You're like, oh my gosh. Wow.
Love to see it. Dang, I really was gonna go off of something you said, and now I can't. Oh yes, I remember. There we go. Got it. Okay. Yes. Yeah. Okay. So I love though how, which granted, like you've worked really hard to build your platform, and it's not like this happened in a day. But I just think it's so cool that like you didn't just focus on capitalizing on trends. Like you weren't just trying to do all the reels and this and that and the other and just like copy what everyone was doing, and you have succeeded so much. And like I think that speaks so much to like, if you have a genuine heart and passion and purpose and you're running after that like for good reasons and for God, like God is going to bless that. And like you've said yes to so many things that have been of God, and you've stored it so well that God's going to keep blessing that. And so I think it's so cool that like working in the social media industry, even like with the Miami Hurricanes, like you would never be instructed to do a graphic with text and have it swipe and just like have it full of paragraphs and different words. Like we would never, ever, that would never fly in what we were told to do. Yet that's exactly what you're doing. And you're literally reaching hundreds of thousands of people. And you honestly might have more followers than Miami Hurricanes does, like, to be honest. And so I just think it's awesome that like, if you are with God and in line with him and his purpose for your life, like he's going to bless it. He's going to use it. Like you can't limit God, and especially social media and especially this life, like God is so above trends. and I think we just need to realize that sometimes. And so much more like authenticity will be taken than any trend might ever be. And so I just applaud you for that, for just not sticking to your guns, because you're definitely growing in different spaces and like seeing how you can, again, play where your feet are and not stay where your feet are. But you're also doing it so genuinely, and it's really cool to see. And I, again, just applaud you for that. So that's awesome. I loved hearing that.
Well, I think you, Cam, also do that so well, as in like, like your giftings and like your, I even always say like, like your presence. And so I love that everything that you post has that spirit in it. Like I feel it, like whether it's like you posting a reel, even you posting your, your merch, I'm like, that feels like Cam. And so I want to applaud you for a second, that I think you're staying authentic and you're staying yourself. And you can feel it in social media where it's not draining. I think that's what's important, is like when you post, and this is for everyone listening, are you connecting or are you competing? Like, are you trying to prove something, or are you trying to show people the love of Christ? And so if you're trying to prove something or compete, then no one's going to want to be on your page. So it's just how it works.
Yeah.
And we'll just get mad and sad. And is that what you want?
Yeah. And I think so much of it goes in phases too. And that's fine. Like, I think for me, for a long time, it was like super just like showing almost the daily life of it all, and like constant stories throughout the day, and like that was super fun and real and raw and honest and all the things. And then it kind of shifted more to like career based and using it as my resume. And so I just posted a lot about my work and what I did, and I love my work and I love what I do, and it's super fun. Like I just talk about sports all day long, so it wasn't like boring content because I love doing that. But it shifted, and so my platform kind of shifted to a different space, and then it kind of shifted back to more about like, okay, behind the scenes again, like more community, more people, a little less of work. And so I think it's fine to just like we're all just figuring it out. And I think as you grow older, as you continue to adult, you realize in life that like literally no one has it together. No one has it figured out. No one knows what they're doing in any shape or space, like at all, whether it's social media, whether it's career, anything, whether you're a CEO or the youngest intern, like we're all just trying to figure it out. So I think give yourself grace as you're going through that too, just to be like, it's okay if I'm taking time to navigate this space, whether that's an online space like social media or a sorority or a team, whatever it might be. Give yourself some grace and then just put your best foot forward, you know?
No, that's so true. And that's so good. And something I need to hear too. So thank you for sharing that.
Of course. Well, Grace, I love you so much because for a million reasons, but also because you're a great example of playing where your feet are. And I think you do that in career, in relationship, in social media, in literally every single area of your life. And that's important because that's what play where your feet are is all about, is that it's no matter what and no matter where. So in any area of your life, you can and should be playing where your feet are. And I think you just do such a great job of that. So after reflecting a little bit today on this episode, of course, you know, you've been following for a while and we're personally in each other's lives. What does play where your feet are mean to you?
Yeah, well, in this season, I think it just means that I'm saying yes to what God wants for me and not afraid to say no to things that aren't for me. And I think sometimes we think with playing, it's about saying yes, 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 but I'm also learning that I can say no so I can actually have time to play and commit and to show up in the spaces he does call for me. So that's something that at least right now, I think, you know, if you would have asked me last year, I would have said like, it's about going and taking every opportunity. But I think I've been in a season where I'm like, it's about being willing to say no, but also not afraid if that yes is a big change, like me moving to Atlanta. Like that's a big change, but I'm excited about it.
Yeah, and I don't know if you've read the book Ruthless Elimination of Hurry by John Mark Comer.
Yes.
Anyone, if you are listening to this podcast and you've not read that book, you need to read that book. If you are a go-getter, you really need to read that book because it's so convicting. It literally slapped me in the face when I read that. But it's so true. Like, we're meant to live a life that is full of living. Like, that's what Play Where Your Feet Are. It was literally the subtitle of the book. But it's also like God came so that we could have an abundant life. Not that we would be stressed and exhausted and burn out to our wits' end and be spread so thin. Like, I think it's so important that you can rest. And sometimes that is doing your best, is actually getting your rest so that you can further do your best, like you said, so you can further go out and play. If you think of play in the sense of like an athlete, we have dedicated rest days in the NCAA so that we can perform at our highest level. Like, rest is required for you to do your best. So I love that you brought that up, that as much as it is important to accept and say yes and go after things with full speed and full force, like, you have to know the balance of having time to yourself, time to recuperate, like time to, again, just rejuvenate your own soul, your spirit, your body, whatever it might be, so you continue going out full force. That's so good. Okay, Grace. So now those who are obviously hearing more of your story, more of the ins and outs, they know you, they follow you, all the things, and they're thinking, oh, okay, like I really want to play where my feet are. That's awesome. What is your advice for those people who are wanting to play where their feet are, but maybe aren't sure exactly how? They just heard your advice of saying no or saying yes, whatever it might be, but they're like, how in the world do I even do that? What would you say to them?
Yeah, start small. Like you don't have to say, I think I've seen like the trend on TikTok where people joke and say, me getting used to like rejection or being like trying to eliminate my fear, and they say something weird, embarrassing in public, and they're like, oh, now I'm better. But I think the same thing goes with like, you know, you just say yes in like a small way, like whether it's, you know, leading at church or, you know, helping and standing in front of a door greeting, something as small as that can be a great way. And then when you start saying yes to the big little holy things, you're going to see the big holy things, and they're all equal in the eyes of God. And so I think understanding that the little holy things are just as impactful as the big holy things, but you're going to have the courage usually when you've said yes to the local things in your life first.
Oof, amen. That's a word right there. Zechariah says, do not despise small beginnings. And so I think just taking advantage of those little things there. And like you said, those little steps those little holy things will lead to big holy things. I love that so much. Grace, this was incredible. I love this conversation so much. Just because the podcast is ending here doesn't mean that our followers should end listening to you, your voice, your wisdom, and all the things you're up to. So at this time, there are no shameless plugs. Tell us, how can we follow you, find you, listen to the podcast, find your books? Just share it all now for us. Let us know.
Fine. Okay, my Instagram is @the Grace Valentine, and then if you go there, click the link in my bio, get to my website, which is www.gracevalentine.org. But basically, you can find my books and link in my Instagram bio on my website. It's on Amazon, everything like that. And so they're all on sale currently on Amazon. So go get them if you've been looking at them, or you just need a good read for the fall, just to get you some inspiration in the midst of hopefully not too much schoolwork and stuff. And so I hope you share too, like, people need to subscribe to your podcast too, not just listen, because you have cool guests on every week. And so this is this public service announcement for Cam's podcast. Don't just like listen every now and then, subscribe so it goes downloaded, and give her a good, Uber rating, a 5-star rating today.
I love it. That's a beautiful word of advice right there. I will happily take that one. And you guys will make sure that we link everything below. So just as she said, she makes it easy. It's all in one place in her bio, and then we'll make it even easier and drop that in the description below so you guys can stay caught up with her and everything she's doing, and her books and her devotionals and her retreat. Y'all, I cannot say enough things about the retreat. It is so fun. It is a blast. It's in the beautiful mountains of North Carolina. So you guys make sure you don't miss it when that comes around next year. But Grace, I'm going to give the final thoughts, words, mic drop moment to you. So as we wrap up this podcast today, girly, what do you have for us? Last words.
Gosh. Nothing crazy. Just be loving and stop wasting your time trying to prove you're worth loving. So whether that's in your career, in your athletics, in your friendships, if you feel like you're wasting your time trying to prove you're worth loving, you're probably not just being loving. Like, don't hold records of wrong. Don't be afraid to love someone more than they love you, or to like someone more than they even like you. And just press on towards God's glory by being loved.
Amen to that. Big mic drop that right there. Grace Valentine, thank you so much for hopping onto the podcast today, and welcome officially to the PWYFA Play Where Your Feet Are family.
I'm honored. Love you, friend.
Love you. Thank you so much for tuning in to another episode of the PWYFA Play Where Your Feet Are podcast. I'm your host, Cameron Dobbs, and it is an honor to be able to sit with you guys through these conversations and let you have an insight into all of them, and an insight into Grace's life. If you don't already follow her, make sure you're following her. All the links mentioned in this episode are all in the description below. So make sure you are following her and seeing everything she's doing and touching base with all the cool things, because it's amazing. We all so much just gratitude for you watching and listening to another episode. And on that note, make sure you're subscribed and following us there as well. And reminder that you can watch and listen to this podcast on all podcasting platforms, whether you're watching on YouTube and Spotify or listening on everything else as well. You can find all episodes wherever you listen and watch your podcast. We're out there, I promise you. But y'all, stay tuned for more PWYFA Play Where Your Feet Are podcast episodes in this season 3. We're so pumped to have our 3rd season. It's been so fun so far with Brooks. We got Grace this week, and y'all, we got so much more to come. So till next time, be blessed, and of course, keep playing where your feet are.